Our guest today is a director of business development for Trend Capital. He was previously on Wall Street for 13 years and at one point owned his own trading desk. His name is Michael Rongo. Hi, Mike. How you doing today?
Great, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, man. Why don't you tell our listeners first what's something that is a guilty pleasure of yours, or something that you like to do for fun that a lot of people might not know about you?
Guilty pleasure, sour candy. So I'm actually a pretty regimented eater. I really watch my diet. I'm pretty much a lean protein, veggies kind of guy. I work out 4 days a week. But on the weekends, actually, this is really why it's a guilty pleasure. This is how I know it's an issue, because I will go to the movies even if I don't want to go to the movies, because I allow myself to have like Sour Patch Kids at the movies just so I could eat poorly. So, like I love sour candy. It's been a weakness of mine since I was a kid.
Do you have any like hidden underneath your pillow in the hotel room or anything like that right now?
Oh no, I didn't do any on this trip because I've been eating so poorly. I'm at FinCon for work.
Yeah.
With my COO, so we've been going to actually really nice meals, and I feel really weird ordering like a bland white fish or a tuna when we go to a steakhouse. So I've been eating just like what he eats. So I haven't been giving myself the sour candy, but I have a feeling on the plane I might.
That's funny. So Sour Patch Kids, I can totally relate. My wife actually, she'll say, if I go through the candy aisle, I have to get Sour Patch Kids.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's a no bracket. That's why I avoid that candy aisle all the time. So that's funny that we relate in that way. I wanted to tell the listeners here kind of how we met in at an event and why you're on the call right now, right? So Mike and I, we were at a networking event for affiliate marketing. Affiliate Summit. Okay. They do one on the East Coast in New York City, and they do one on the West Coast in Las Vegas every year. And we had a meeting with Mike, and I was with my business manager, and we were talking and chatting about how we can do business together. Right. And all of a sudden I stopped kind of in the middle of it. And I looked at him and I said, Mike, you're a daily meditator, aren't you? You do a lot of meditation. And he smiled and he's like, what? How the heck did you know that? Right? It was your response or something. Yeah. And I just felt it. I felt the energy. And
it was a good
good read. I don't know. And maybe I'm an empath, who knows, but that's for another day. But yeah, I asked him, and then we started, of course, that was like an open door for me because of what I'm going through right now. And obviously doing this podcast and all that. So we talked for a little while about it. I got a little history on Mike, and I was like, dude, you gotta be on and talk about your story a little bit. So Mike, you're living proof, going from, well, you know what? Why don't we just tell us how the Wall Street days were, owning your own trading desk a little bit, and then where you are now.
Yeah, I can even go back a little bit further. So I grew up like in New York from a very passionate, we can say spirited, immigrant Italian family. So my parents are first generation. I'm second generation. And I always was classified as ADD growing up. It was just kind of my personality. I was very hyper all over the place a little bit, and I found it hard to concentrate mentally on school. I was able to always buckle down and study when I needed to, when my feet were to the fire, but just grew up ADD. And you fast forward, what's a great job for someone that's ADD coming out of school with a finance degree is Wall Street in New York, especially. So, it was also it was also a great place for me to hide as an addict. As you know, I'm in recovery. It's something that I was able to figure out later on in life, but when you're in your early 20s, it all kind of seems very normal. So right. Wall Street was fast-paced. It was exciting. It was very lucrative. I used to call it the golden handcuffs because even if you didn't love it, you kind of were forced to stay there because you were never going to make the money that you were making on Wall Street anywhere else. So we were kind of handcuffed to it. But to be honest, if I was being really just very candid, I loved it. I loved the energy. I thought we were masters of the universe. I started off in the back office of Bear Stearns in 2003. I hated the big corporation, so I went to a startup called the Benchmark Company in 2004. So I was only at Bear Stearns for about 9 months. I actually handled their account at Bear Stearns, went over to Benchmark, started off in the back office there, then was a junior trader, eventually got my own institutional sales book, from there in '08 and '09 is when I was really making my bones. The housing market was crashing. I specialized in short selling. And
wow.
Yeah, and
good time for you.
Yeah, so that was basically how those years kind of were my formative years and how I made my name in the business.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you have your trading desk at that time, the partnerships?
So because of those years, I made more money at 28 years old than I ever thought I was going to make, yearly. And I kind of, from there, consistently was making a nice chunk of change, had saved some money, invested in this guy I knew bought a broker dealer. He was bought out his partners, and he was looking for other partners. So me and another guy bought in. So there were 4 of us, and eventually we bought out one of the other guys. So there were 3, and we owned our own trading desk. I ran the institutional side upstairs, and my partner ran the floor of on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange with all the fun jackets. Like he ran those guys. So we had about I think a total of 10 guys. It was exciting. It was scary and all that good stuff.
Fast paced.
Very, very fast. Yeah.
Was it like 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. kind of days or what?
So yes, no, it was actually, so I would get into work at 7. The market closes at 4. I would go out with clients after work, and sometimes I wouldn't get home until 2, 3 in the morning, because I was just out on what I considered unwinding and a well-deserved drink. And really, what I ended up figuring out was that because I could never calm myself down, I started to use supplements or narcotics really to knock myself out. And I got really hooked on oxycodone. It first started off as 1, and I'll come out of work and I'll just take an oxy and I'll unwind. And before I got to the end of my run, I was up to about 100 to 125 a day. My
milligrams.
No, pills. I was well over 1,000 milligrams. Yeah.
100. Okay. Wow.
I was taking about 100 to 120 10 milligram pills a day. I had a $30,000 pill habit. And
$30,000 a month, you said?
Yeah, $30,000 a month pill habit.
Yeah, you were making some good money on Wall Street, huh?
Yeah, but you know what? When I got forced out of my company at the end of 15, I still had this pill habit. So I got a settlement from my buyout and my savings, and I went through a bad divorce, and because of the drugs and alcohol. No kids, but it wasn't easy, and just made bad decision after bad decision. That's kind of like how I got out of Wall Street, and then didn't really have anything else to do, and I had negative $1,200 in my bank account. I was 45 pounds overweight. I said to my parents, I really want to, I think I should go to rehab. And they had talked me out of it once before because they were afraid of the stigma. And then I finally told them I was going. And my dad turned to me and said, you know what? You quit the Boy Scouts in the 4th grade. You'll quit rehab. And I said, I got to get out of New York. So I went back to my insurance company, said, what's the furthest Betty Ford that you'll cover in the country from New York? And they said, well, there's one 3,000 miles away in Newburgh, Oregon. And I didn't know, and we call it Oregon, by the way, but I didn't know, where that was. So I said, go there. And I did. And when I got there, I immediately, I didn't know what it meant to be an addict. And I didn't know what it meant to be that I didn't know I was sick. I thought I just had a problem with pills. And I remember when I'm in there, I told my drug counselor who it started working. I started reading this packet on shame and realizing that this is not just a Michael problem. This is actually something I have. He wanted me to start meditating and going to AA. And I said, I'll do anything you ask, but I'll never meditate and I'll never go to AA.
The two things he wanted you to do. You're like, no, that's
yeah. I said, I'll read your books. I won't drink. I'll do whatever you want, but I'm never going to AA, and I'm never meditating for sure. Because I didn't think I could meditate. And this was the honest truth, Justin. Like, if I were being honest, I thought my mind would never let me meditate. And I didn't realize that, like anything else, it's just practice. I would vacillate between falling asleep or like leaving the meditation when we had meditation groups in the morning at rehab, because I just couldn't do it. I didn't think I could calm my mind down. And eventually, as I started just practicing, and they said, take 5 minutes if you can't do 45 minutes, right? So, and then my therapist gave me really what I found is what changed my meditation for good, and I was able to carry this and use it anytime I meditate going forward. Is that my mind's allowed to wander, but anytime that my mind gets off topic and I bring it back to my breathing, that's a spiritual push-up. So that's like me doing a push-up, and you'll just get stronger if you do more push-ups, right? So anytime I do it, I don't beat myself up over it. I kind of let my mind wander, and I say, "Oh, I'm back," and I do that. And before I knew it, I was getting really great at meditate, or for me, I was getting really comfortable with meditation is the word I would use, and I started seeing a difference in my day-to-day life. I wasn't as edgy. I was calmer. I was becoming more patient. And I said, "Wait a minute. These are things I thought you were either born with or you weren't." I didn't realize that you could practice this thing, like shooting a basketball or, playing a sport, a golf swing. And I said, all right, so let's keep going. And I just kept following it and kept doing it. And I kept, I got out of rehab. I moved into a sober house. I continued my meditation. I continued going to AA. I started going to a meditation class, which was like, so in AA, there's all different types of themes, or sometimes they're just generic meetings, and sometimes they're men's only meetings. And there's also meditation meetings, which is pretty cool. And Refuge Recovery has some meditation meetings as well. I started reading Dalai Lama, and I kind of got a little woo-woo. And what I realized is I started being drawn, especially at East Coast City Slicker, out in the West Coast, like to things that were making me very present, things that kept me present. I started working out. I started in the gym. I don't really worry about anything except for the weights I'm using or, what I'm doing physically. I took up surfing, which is very spiritual, and I could be out on the surfboard. And when I'm sitting down waiting for a wave, like it's just you in the ocean and you're listening to the sounds. I mean, it's very I'd call it spiritual experience, and it's very meditational.
I've heard people say that before. I've heard surfers talk about that.
Yeah, something about water, and being out in the open. Horseback riding, and then I learned to ride a dirt bike, things like that you really have to concentrate on. So they force your presence to be very much there.
So you, after all, I love what you said earlier. You said spiritual push-ups. And I'm not sure if I've heard that term before. I might have, but I like how you put it, because the more push-ups you do, the more spiritual push-ups you do, the stronger your mind gets, and then you start realizing that what meditation is actually doing for you. I didn't realize that these retreats, sobriety, what would you call them? Sobriety retreats?
No, I went to rehab.
Rehab. But you stayed on the facility, right? You stayed in the morning, they would have 45 minutes of meditation. So you wake up, you go into meditation. Yeah. They really preach meditation for everybody, but really for us who have racing minds. And I didn't realize that meditation was part of those places. I had no idea that they did that. Is that a common occurrence, or is this just in that one specifically? Do you know?
I would say that from my experience with other, for people that have gone to different rehabs, that they preach meditation like anything else. It's actually in the AA steps. It's prayer and meditation is the 11th step. So conscious contact with God, but also just it's a huge part of recovery. So I'm pretty sure at all rehab facilities, they make you aware. Yeah. I think it's something we buck against very much so. Like there's two things I'd say that people in recovery really don't want to do. They don't want to stop drinking and using, and they don't want to meditate. Neither sound great.
Right. And you have on September 11th, I remember before we started recording this, you said that you'll be 3 years.
Yep.
Sober. So congratulations on that. That's awesome. I have addiction in my family, a lot of addiction in my family. People have passed away from it and a lot of stuff. So I understand what you're, sort of, to a point of what you're going through. And you were talking about your parents. What's that?
You absolutely will understand. It's just coming from a different angle. But what I realize about families, it's like you go through a lot of the same emotions we do without from a different perspective. That's all.
And I'm not even sure if I've honestly even dealt with that completely yet, to be straightforward with you. Like I've dealt with a lot over the past year, and the people listening will understand if they listen to any of these episodes. But I don't even know if I fully dealt with I don't know if it's trauma or what it is of 10 years of that in my family. So I'm not sure. That's something I still probably need to explore a little more, I would say. Especially after you saying that, you don't realize it, but you probably have dealt with similar stuff as the person from a different perspective. So interesting, very interesting. How do you attest like your meditation practice, working out, all that stuff to keeping you sober?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that a big factor?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I say that like without pause. It is absolutely. I do certain things that to stay sober. Like I don't want the life that sobriety gave me to then pull me out of sobriety. Meaning, like I had all these things in place that have kept me sober and got me healthy. And now that I'm healthy, I don't want to go like this. Okay, like let's go have fun again. So I keep those same practices. And meditation is definitely one of them.
Cool. Are you completely no drinking, nothing? Like no drinks?
Well, another guilty pleasure that I usually normally wouldn't admit was like, so I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I won't do anything that's mind altering. But when I was in rehab, I picked up a habit of like tobacco use, like a dipping, like
yeah, totally. Yeah,
I don't chew tobacco anymore, but I do Zyn, which is like it's like it's Nicorette gum for people that used to dip.
Okay.
But it still has nicotine in it. So like I made sure that you couldn't see it with the video when we were, because it was behind me.
So another guilty pleasure of yours. Okay, cool. So we sold that.
I'm embarrassed by it, but that's it. That's where it stops. Like I won't smoke weed. I won't there are 3 things you can't be kind of. You can't be kind of sober. You either are or you aren't. You can't be kind of honest. And 80% truth is still 100% a lie. And you can't be kind of pregnant. Like those are the things you can't be kind of. So I believe in full sobriety, full honesty.
That's what your belief is. Okay. Interesting. Cause I've had different conversations with some people that are like, well, I can still have a drink every now and then, and I don't know. I don't know. I haven't really fully sat down and thought about what my, real feelings are in that. Cause I'm not someone that's going through it completely, but yeah.
So I think that everyone works their own program, Justin. Yeah. But I was taught that once you're a pickle, you can never be a cucumber again, so you can't go back. And honestly, if I were being like completely candid, I don't want to have a glass of wine,
Right.
I want 10 and then a line of Coke and some Oxy to come down from. Like that's really like how I drink and use. Yeah. I'm not looking for to have a glass of wine with dinner. That does nothing for me.
Yeah. See, it's so interesting talking to somebody like you, Mike, because I've done a lot of partying back in the day. Especially being in this business, you're networking, you're partying a lot. There's a lot of different personalities in it, as we know, which is fine, and that's cool. But I've done, drugs, all that stuff, a lot of drinking, late nights, 24 hours, stuff like that. But I've never, I'm able to just, come back and not do it for 2-3 weeks or whatever, and then go back. So the addiction portion, I don't understand. So it's very, it's interesting to me talking to and learning about it more, you know what I mean? And I think that learning about it and seeing it, helps me understand it and also deal with it with what I've been through in the past. So I, again, appreciate you coming on and talking about it and being so open. I do.
Yeah, I'm not anonymous. I spent too much time like with shame and being afraid of who I was, and now I feel that my part of my journey is to be open and honest, so that if someone has a problem, they know that they can come to me, or if somebody with a problem, they can call me. And we help each other.
Do you sponsor anybody?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I have a sponsor and I have sponsees. So
nice. And you still go to meetings?
I go 5 or 6 meetings a week. Usually about 5 is about my average.
Really?
Yeah. 6:30 in the morning. That's how I wake up and start my day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's a total, talking to you is a total different perspective. Some people locally I've talked to about it. That's why it's good. It's kind of a refresher to hear that, to be honest. Now, I want to ask you. You keep talking about shame. You've said shame a few times. Let's go into that a little more. What do you mean by shame? Like, I know we talked a little bit, tiny bit. So I when I first started my journey myself personally into being better and completely changing who I was because of my values and all that were screwed up. My wife got me a book by Brene Brown called Daring Greatly, and it was literally what's that?
It's my Bible.
Yeah, it's your Bible, and we somehow that came up in the first 2 minutes of us talking at that event.
Yeah.
And it started my reading journey, honestly, and I've read more books in the past year than I have in the past 10 years. Right. And Darren Gray was the first one that kicked me off, and I loved it, and I was into it, and it was great, and it was awesome. So can you talk to me more about shame and what were, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, the way I was described, shame was described to me as the difference between shame and guilt is I've done something bad, and shame is I'm a bad person. Like that's the difference between guilt and shame. And I was, I think, lowering my morals to meet my actions instead of changing my actions to meet my morals. You know what I mean? Like, so like I would do bad things and then I would just say, well, that's okay. And I'd keep doing these things that like to get drugs to, in my use that I wasn't talking about. I never shared about. I had this total double life. I'll give you a great example. So my grandfather has no sons. He had my mom and my aunt. And he and I were very, very close. He passed away, and we're at the funeral. My grandmother takes off his watch because, Italians have open caskets, and gave me his watch and said, he never had a son. He wanted you to have this. And I said, oh, thank you very much. And that was like the last thing I sold for drugs because I had run through all my money and was broke. And so that's like a watch that I'll never get back. I was never able to recover it. I think it was melted for gold or whatever it was. It wasn't even that expensive of a watch. But I remember justifying it in my head that I was like, oh, I'll just buy one when I get back on my feet that looks exactly like it. And that's something now that I would never do, obviously. And I know how crazy it sounds. Yeah. So shame like that I carried, and I can never get that back. But what I like to think of, and the way I switched the narrative now, is I carry that watch with me every day. That's how low I can get. So because I never want to go back there, I now I don't feel shame over that. That was a learning experience. That's my bottom. So I've learned how to process how I can be imperfect, as Brene Brown would say. I can make mistakes. Yeah. I can ask for help, but I don't have to be this perfect person. I can be a human.
Right. So many people talk about striving for perfection. Yeah. Right. And I mean, what is perfection? What does that even mean? And for us to put that kind of pressure on ourselves is probably half insane, right?
Yeah, perfection is the enemy of good, right? Like if you only try to be perfect, you might not even be good because you're going to fail at perfection, obviously. It's an interesting come to terms with with who you are as a human being, that you're going to, whatever version of Michael this is today is okay and is enough. And I never felt like that before. I always felt like less than, or kind of like an alien. I don't know. It's hard to describe my inner feelings, but I always felt uncomfortable.
Yeah. I understand where you're coming from. I get it. Like almost like a mask that was on that. Yeah, I mean, is that you were afraid to take off, to be vulnerable, or express emotions. And yeah, so I totally can understand there. And I appreciate you being vulnerable and talking about shame. That's cool.
No, I think everyone feels it and processes it differently. I think that those that are healthy are able to say, this isn't me. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my actions. Sometimes I'm more than that. And for me, I just kept saying, oh, I was doing all these bad things. I must be this terrible human being. I don't deserve any happiness. And it was interesting when I got sober and I started getting happy, yeah. I got uncomfortable. I was so uncomfortable. I wrote an email to my family saying, I don't know what's wrong with me, but everything's going really well. And I feel more anxious than I've ever felt. And honestly, that's when I started meditating more. That's when I started kicking it into gear. I was doing it once or twice a week at that point, and I started doing it daily because I needed to calm down the anxiety in my nerves. And that was about 3 or 4 months into sobriety.
Yeah, I love how you actually just talked about that, being uncomfortable and the anxiety picking up. Some people might take that as a bad sign and say, oh, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing, or, oh, I don't want to keep feeling this way. But you break through that because on the other side of uncomfortable uncertainty is growth, right?
Yeah, and absolutely. Yeah.
And then you went through, I mean, you're living proof of that. So that's incredible. And I want to I don't know if you want to talk about it or whatever, but earlier you were saying that your parents, your dad said something to you like you quit Boy Scouts in the fourth, was he? You think he was? Do you think that was just because of frustration after dealing with you going through all this craziness? And he's like, I just can't anymore. Like this is, I can't be that. You know what I mean? Like, talk about that.
Yeah. He was completely exhausted. I could go
exhausted,
really fast.
exhausted.
Yeah. Exhausted, and he was scared, and he was going through the same emotions that I was going through from a different angle and perspective. Like he was scared, he was hopeless, he was powerless, all the stuff that I was feeling and he was feeling. But he's a knockaround guy from the Bronx, and like he told me to pick myself up from the bootstraps. Fast forward, so 3 years almost, and I got married a couple weeks ago. Right?
Congratulations.
I get married. Thank you very much. I got the ring. He gets up he goes, I want to give a speech. And I was like, Dad, you're not the father of the bride. You don't really get to give a speech. He's like, I'm giving a speech. I said, okay. I'm not going to argue with my father. So he gets up, and I didn't know how it was going to go. And I've really never seen him show emotion in my life. He's a very warm and funny guy, but he doesn't really get deep, and he definitely doesn't get vulnerable ever, my whole life. He gets up, and he starts off by going, things got really dark in New York, and we didn't really understand addiction. And he starts doing this like share, like what I do when I go and speak at rehabs. Like he starts doing in front of 100 people, half of whom he doesn't know because he's in Oregon, like with my, my wife's family is there that he met a day ago. And he really talks about how he didn't understand it. He still didn't understand it until he got out here. And then meeting my friends in the program and meeting, my wife and her family, like he had met Christina before, but he had never met her family. He now gets it. And I turn around, everyone's crying, I'm crying. And it was like this, like complete 180 from where we had started. And I was like, that was worth the price of admission, Wow. So like we don't always understand situations, and we can't always believe what we think, because sometimes we think we know and we don't. He thought he knew what was best for me. And I kind of went on a limb and went out to Oregon, and he finally has accepted that, one, I'm not going back to New York, and two, I think that there was a reason for me to do it, and he gets it, which was great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you get that on video by chance?
Yeah. Oh no, I did not get the speech on video. I wish I did. It's something I have to hold because I didn't have a videographer. I just had a photographer.
Well, that's okay. It's still inside you. That's good.
It is. Yeah,
it'll always be with you. That's amazing. That's incredible. I mean, and that just happened. Like you're still feeling those. Have you talked to him since then? Like about it?
Yeah, he won't talk about it really. But I went to him. I was like, Dad, that was pretty powerful. I never knew that that's the way you felt. He's like, that was from the heart. And I said, it felt pretty good. He goes, yeah, it was like really cathartic. I said, yeah. I go, that's called therapy. And he said, yeah, whatever. And, he kind of brushed me off.
Sure. But still, that's amazing. The little crack. That was good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you. What sounds like a good wedding day. You had all your friends and family. Where'd you guys do it? At your hometown?
No, so we did it in Gresham. So we did like city one night, and basically, so Portland is my home. It's where I live now. I moved from Newburgh into a sober house, and then eventually into the city of Portland. I can get, I'll take you through my professional life in a second, but Portland's my home. It's, it's about an hour from the beach, an hour and a half from a ski mountain. It's all outdoorsy, very different than New York. So when my New York family got there on a Friday night, we did a welcome party in the city at a hotel, so they were comfortable. And then the next night for the wedding, I took them on a bus out to Gresham, and it was really special because it was a nice overcast day. It wasn't too hot, and it was on this little ravine that overlooked the valley, and it was just gorgeous.
I'm not familiar with Gresham.
Gresham is like it's like the country of Oregon. There was a big horse ranch that we got married at where we go horseback riding.
It's just like land everywhere, and beauty, and that's
trees. Cool. Yeah.
Awesome. So when you're back in, when I met you in New York, do you have any like residual anxiety when you come back to New York City, or no? Is it kind of past you?
It's getting past me. So the first time I got back to New York, I literally wanted to take off my clothes and run naked. I felt like all the energy in New York City.
Wow.
It was just like, I was like, I'm home. This is great. And then I said, I'm never going back. And I wasn't going to go back to Portland because I was like, this is my home. And when I flew back to Portland and I landed in PDX, I had this big exhale and I said, ooh, I should really listen to my body. What was that? Like, why am I so comfortable now? And I realized that New York was a lot, and I was my physical being was actually changing with the difference with being in the East Coast versus the West Coast. And I started listening to my inner self, and now I never want. I mean, I like visiting. I don't want to live there.
Yeah. Are you somebody that's like that is always taking like leaps of faith and jump? Because I think not a lot of people can go from like rock bottom, what you talked about earlier, to saying, okay, I'm gonna go call my insurance company and look for the farthest way possible place to go to and just do it. Like that's scary. That's scary for somebody who's completely sober and has their shit all together, and then do it. You know what I mean? So were you just at the point where like you had nothing to lose? I mean, what is that kind of how it was?
Yes. Well, there were two things I was really afraid of: the way my life was going and change. And this was the first time that change was less scary than the direction my life was going. So I said, I need to like shake this up. And I honestly only planned for going for 30 days, 28 days. I was going to come back. I just wanted to reset. And then when I was out there, I just kept staying. And I was like, all right. And my drug counselor said, well, you move into a sober house for 30 days. Don't go back to New York right away. And I said, why? I'm fixed. I'm better. He said, just do it for me. And so I did. And then I was like, all right, I'll stay till Christmas. So at that point, like October, I stayed till Christmas, and I kept getting better and better, and I kept staying. And then eventually I tried my office. A firm that I had worked for had given me an opportunity to work in like a WeWorks out there and trade. So I did that for about 6 months, but it just never took. Like I wasn't on a desk. I wasn't in front of clients. I wasn't really. I was missing the open because I was going to my 6:30 AA meeting, which is 9:30 when the market opens in New York. So it just wasn't working, and I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And everyone in Portland seems to be a barista, or at least that's what it appears like. So where is like the financial center here? And they're like, there's no financial district. This isn't New York. So a guy in AA who was like well dressed and really put together, about my father's age, I went to him and I said, what, like basically, like, what do you do? Because I wanted to know what the successful people in Portland did. He said, oh, I own a marina. A bunch of marinas, and a boat dealership. We sell high-end yachts. Why don't you come over to my apartment? So I said, okay. So I went over to his apartment, and he said, I've watched you grow over 9 months. He said, if you want to go back to New York, you can do it. You'll make it. And I said, I don't want to go back. He said, well, how would you like to sell yachts for me? And I said, Rick, I don't know anything about boats. He said, but you know sales. I'll teach you about boats. So I did that for a year and a half, and it was very, very humbling. And my family wasn't happy about it because I went to school for finance. I had this career. They wanted me to kind of get back on the horse, so to speak. And I just didn't want to do Wall Street anymore. I didn't want to work on a desk like that or in a bank. So I started selling boats. I was terrible at it at first. I got better at it. Eventually, I sold a boat to this guy and got to know him and his family and his partner. And they were looking to buy a bigger boat a little bit later on. And he kind of got to know my story. And he said, he called me into his office. So why don't you come up to our office? So I went there, and I realized pretty quickly it was an interview. And he said, do you want to help me build a business, or do you want to sell boats forever, or do you want to help me build a business? And I said, I'd like to help you build a business. And it was Trend. And that's how I ended up in the position I'm in now. So I sold the owner of Trend a boat, and he kind of
So was it you sold one boat and then moved on to the new career?
No, I sold. I worked there for like a year and a half.
Okay.
I sold like little boats at first, and then eventually the biggest boat I sold was his, and it was.
I won't ask how much it was then.
Oh, I don't care. It was. He bought one. I think that was like for. He bought it on a huge discount, but we'll say it was over $500,000. Okay. It gives you a wide range. It could be a lot more than half, a little more, but it was
cool. Does he still have it?
No, he traded up for a bigger one.
Nice.
But I wasn't there when he did that. Nice. And I still have a good relationship with the guy that gave me that job. Rick is still like a father to me. He was at my wedding. He's 37 years sober. So. Yeah.
Cool, man. That's awesome. It sounds like that was a good move, and it's a really cool story. I had no idea anything about this, and I think that I think you should share it as much as possible, honestly, with people. So, because there's a lot to learn there. That's really good. Can I ask you?
Anything.
I want to ask you a couple things, but first I want to just know how often do you meditate? How long is it? This is curious.
So when I was selling boats, I did it almost I'd say 5 days a week, because I got to the office early. I had my own little office with like no windows, and I would go in there and I would just meditate. And honestly, as life got bigger, I got away from it more and more. So now it kind of ebbs and flows.
Okay.
So I'd say like 3 times over the last week. And it sometimes is 5, and it could be as little as 1, depending on, where I am. But I do know when I'm getting away from it, I feel myself like the edges start to get sharper. I might be not as nice to someone behind a counter, or somebody rubs. It's a good litmus test when I'm driving and how peaceful I am. If I'm really angry and or when I'm driving, I'm probably not meditating enough.
Yeah. And that's for you. For me, well, you have a kid, right?
No, but on the way.
No.
It's funny. I just found out. So we've known for a little.
I thought I saw pictures of you with. Is this like a niece or nephew or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Christine's 12 weeks pregnant, which is exciting. Trying to have the sex in a couple weeks. So
sweet. Yeah, nice, man. Yeah. Are you gonna do one of those big reveals on video with like blowing a thing of blue or purple or pink?
No, it's not me. I have friends that have done it, so I'm trying not to.
Sure.
Judge, but it's
I know. We did a grand. We did it for both. So yeah, that's funny. So for me, you were talking about driving. For me, it's with my kids, and this will be a good test for you in the future. Is you'll start to realize that you're reacting quicker, and I'm trying to think of the right word, but you're having more reaction to your kids than you should be, and that's when I try to realize, okay, I need to up my meditation, do a little longer, be more, and I do it every day, but sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 20. So yeah, that's a good test. That is a really good test.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
About being like a parent. So when you get angry, or like, because I realized something about my parents as an adult now, like a lot of times they would get angry because they were just afraid. It was like out of fear. Anger stems from fear, that kind of thing. And they were more afraid of like me hurting myself or making a bad decision, or like, I don't know, sticking a fork in the socket when I'm really little. Like, is that what the anger comes from, or is it just exhaustion, or?
So that's a good question. And I'm going to be completely straightforward, honest right now. I don't get, it's very rare that I'll get angry.
Okay.
Right. And they're little. So who knows how that'll be or change when 4 and 1.5, 4.5 and 1.5. However, there's nobody that will test your ego more than your kids. So yes, I have reactions, and mainly I'll be honest with you, man. What you notice is it's when they invade your mental space is when you have these reactions that you regret or be like, oh wow, I shouldn't have done that. And what I mean by that is if you're, we're all human, right? We're on our phones sometimes. Let's be honest. You can't, if I'm a full day with them, I'm not going to have my phone down the whole time, right? So if I'm texting somebody and I'm in the middle of a conversation for a couple minutes and she's coming over and she's repeating, daddy, 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 daddy. I'm like, babe, I just got to finish, honey, let me finish this conversation. And then you start to build up, like you feel yourself building up inside as you're talking, and as your daughter and kid are trying to get a hold of you, then your son's all of a sudden grabbing your leg, right? So they know when you're not paying attention to them for a little bit. And then you react, right? However, with honest to God, with meditation, it allows me to realize, oh wow, I'm building up. I'm about to react. Let me put my phone down. Let me just take a couple deep breaths and then pay attention to the kids. And then it allows me not to be like, God, get off here, Joey. You know what I mean? And then lose it and get into the spiral. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of.
It puts you in, it's really funny. I like what you said about meditation. It puts you in touch with like what's going on with you. Like I can feel when I'm starting to grab that edge or to build up some whatever it is inside, anxiety, or even if it's anger or whatever, like I can feel a change, and I know that I can settle myself, that it doesn't have to stay and I don't have to react. Which is
exactly. So that with meditation, for me personally, the only way that I can really do it consistently is a morning, kind of like a morning routine. So I have to get up early before my kids are up, before even my wife gets up, and do it, and journal and do that and whatever else I need to do in the morning. And that kind of like owns my day. So when I do that, I have way better days. And so lately, I'm not, truthfully, lately, the past couple months, I've been like 2, 3, 4 days a week, with my morning routine. I still find ways to meditate throughout the day, but and I can tell that I've been off more, right? And my days start to own me instead of me owning my days.
Very well said.
And a friend of mine said it like that, and I use it now. I stole it from him, but and it's totally different. So that's what I would suggest to stay consistent, is to get it first thing in the morning, right? But I want to change topics a little bit, and I'm asked this question because I saw it on your Facebook page. I was scrolling through, and can I ask you about your friend Mikey B?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it sounds like you guys are pretty close. And I just want to hear about him.
So his brother is one of my best friends in the whole world. We've been friends since we're 12 years old. So what's that? 26 years.
Yeah.
And so I've known Michael since he was we're about 10 years apart in age, and since he was a kid. And Billy and I did a lot of partying together, but he never had that extra gear that I had. Billy's his older brother. And
so you always hung a lot longer than everybody else?
Yeah, he and I. Yeah, I was always that. I used to say I would go kicking and screaming I left claws into Sunday night because I would never want to go into the weekdays.
We'll go back. I just want to kind of interrupt there with you. So did you think that that was a cool thing? Like, yeah, that's me. Like, I'm cool. Cause my friends would always tell me, oh dude, I can't keep up with you. Like, you party harder than any of us. Like, and I was always like, yeah, man, I know. I'm like,
I think he kind of scared me, but I definitely wore it as a badge of honor. Cause yeah, why not? Like, I was like, oh yeah, I can outlast you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a point of pride for me.
So I understand. So go. Okay.
So Michael was like was a younger, Billy's younger brother. They look identical, but they were about, 10 years apart. And I get a phone call from Billy, and he's been very supportive of my sobriety, very supportive of everything that I've been going through. And he's still one of my best friends to this day. That his brother had a similar problem that I had. So I got on the phone, I talked to Michael, and it was the exact same thing. It was oxys, it was the same routine. And he went to rehab, got out, kind of like couldn't figure it out, went back to rehab. And I spoke to him while he was at rehab. He's like, I'm going to go back to New York. And I was like, maybe you should just stay out there, do a sober house like I did. He said, I'm going to do a sober house in New York. I applied and got in, and I said, well, that's great. So he goes back to New York. The sober house was opening up for him on a Friday. He went into a hotel on a Thursday, bought heroin, OD'd and died. Billy's never, he hasn't been the same. His family's not, there's Billy, Mickey Lynn, and then Michael and Melissa were twins. So his family is just like kind of really missing a major piece of their core. And I don't know if they'll ever be the same. You don't really you never get over that stuff. I think you just learn how to live with it, like learning how to walk with a limp. I mean, that's the way it is. I've had death is something that is just really part of our world. And so you don't see a lot of old drug addicts because they're dead. When I moved into my first apartment, I moved into in Portland. I moved in with two buddies that were in the sober house with me, and we all had about a year sobriety. And one morning I went into my buddy Nick's, I'll make the story short, to his room because I knew something was going on. I had a feeling he had relapsed, and I found him dead on the floor. I was about a year sober at that point, and I could have gone one or two ways with it. I could have went, hey, like I deserve to drink and use right now because of all the pain that I'm going through. He was my best friend out in Portland. Or I could, use this and say, that's not going to be me. And I went and said, I know that's not going to be me. And Brian, my other roommate, who wasn't meditating, wasn't going to AA, wasn't doing any of the stuff that we had started doing, is still in the wind. He's still out drinking and using. So he went the other way. And that's just, this is part of our journey.
It's so interesting because I mean, most people go through their lives and not see anybody actually like dead in front of them, right? And I know I don't want to say it's commonplace, but it happened like in your world, right? And it's a sad thing, and I get it, and I'm sorry about your friend, truly. And I just interviewed somebody, doctor, who was prescribing opioids like it was candy.
Yeah.
And he one day was like, kind of like, what's going on here? Like, this is not. And now he doesn't prescribe anything. He goes to meditation, he teaches yoga, acupuncture, everything else to try to deal with people's stress, pain, everything else besides just prescribing a drug within the first 5 minutes of meeting them, kind of thing, you know?
I'd like to talk to that guy. I mean, that's a great story.
It is. You can listen to it. It's going to be the week before yours. So I mean, obviously you'll listen. I'll send you the link. It's interesting. And you know, and he doesn't blame anybody for it. It's just what happens when you're in the system. It's part of, as a doctor, he was going into that. You'll have to hear it. It's pretty cool. It's cool.
Yeah, no, like I said, you're never too far. I mean, unless you're dead, you're never beyond growth. And that's, even the biggest mistakes can be the parent of true growth. And they really can be like a jumping off point for you. And I never knew that life, that I had the ability to control the narrative. And what I mean by that is that, like, life might supply the ink, but I hold the pen. So I get to choose what I see. So, like, instead of saying that, you know, it's like the half empty, half full, what is the cup, right? And I get to choose that. And I never knew I had a choice. I always saw kind of the negative side, or I always was waiting for the other shoe to drop when something went well. I never enjoyed, you know, I spent half my life, Justin, especially in my successful days, worrying about losing what I had and pissed off I didn't have more. So now I just found gratitude and being very grateful for everything I have. I love this job, and I think it's great. And if it doesn't work, I'll be okay, you know?
Yeah, and that's that presence. That's that happy place. It's interesting you say that, because you had all the money in the world. Well, not in the world, but you had plenty of money, and you were doing things. You know, you weren't as happy as you are now with less money, right? However, it doesn't mean you're not striving for more. Obviously,
I'm ambitious, and I'm super competitive too. Like I'm not, like, I'm still me. You know, I'm not.
Oh yeah.
You know, I don't want to live in a tent under a bridge, and there's not, you know, like, and I'm very grateful. I have the capabilities to earn and to reinvent myself. But I also have the humility to understand that just because I want something to be doesn't mean that it's right for me or that it's going to happen, and that how I can have ambitions and goals, but the results are not really the point. It's the effort that I put into something that matters. And you know, the more expectations you have, the less serenity you're going to have. So I try to keep my expectations low and to keep my serenity high. And in order to do that, I try as hard as I can. And sometimes my best is a 10, and and that's great. And sometimes my best is a 2, and that's okay too. You know, like but as long as I'm always giving my best, you know, I let the cards kind of fall where they do. I say that, but like, there are certain things I want to control. Like, as soon as Christina got pregnant, I was like, should you be eating that? Like, we should go to the doctor. Like, I started seeing my, like, old controlling obsessive self come in. Like, I'm Googling things. And I had to break and I had to go, whoa, this is something I'm never going to be able to control. Like, the health of the baby inside her. Like, I have no control over this. And that was really scary, even though it's like, it seems very obvious, but.
Well, it shows how excited you are and how much you care. That's for sure, right?
Sure. Yeah. I can't tell. She probably has a different opinion on it, but yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I always was deep down hoping for a boy at first, and when I had a girl, so whatever you have, it's amazing. Like, I'm so happy that I had a girl. It's really, and then I had a boy, so I kind of got lucky and got the best of both worlds. However, what?
How old are you?
I'm 30. I'm 35.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So you're young. You're not. You're a good age.
Well, I'm 35, but you look like you're 32, 33.
Thanks. I'm 38.
30. Okay.
Yeah, we're about the same age.
We're both getting started. I mean, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
We're both getting started. That's how I like to see it. And yeah, so whatever it is, it's a blessing, and I would never change it for the world, no matter how much of a pain in the butt they are sometimes. It's amazing. They're not here right now, and I miss them. It's weird. Like I was so excited for them. They went to my grandma's last night for the night. I was able to get some work done. I stayed up late, got work done, and then obviously we're talking this morning. I would never be able to do this if my kids were running around in the background, obviously. And I was so excited, and I'm like, yes, I get some time to myself. And then this morning I wake up and it's like an empty house, and it's like, oh man, I kind of miss them. Yeah. So it's this weird like balance of feelings that you go through. It's cool.
It's really interesting that you said that, because it's like I get to travel for work now. Like I'm in Washington, D.C., across the country, and it seems really exciting. Haven't been here since I'm 20. And I wake up and I'm just like, all I want to do is see Christina. Like, all I want to do is kind of like, I feel very alone. So I understand the feeling.
You just got married. So that's still, cause like, I guess you kind of reinvigorate your honeymoon stage when you get married. So, and then now you're traveling. So you're like, damn, I need to get back. Are you guys going to go on a honeymoon?
Yes. And, we're going to Hawaii in December. So a really cool story. Like a guy I met in rehab who's, he was about a couple weeks. I got there after I had been there a couple weeks, and he's still sober. We have our sobriety days for about 12 days from each other. He owns a condo in Hawaii, and he was like, as a wedding present, he and his wife offered it to us, which was like, yeah, I've never been, neither has she. So, yeah.
Look at this. You're keeping, like, you're keeping good contacts. That's good. Whatever energy you're putting out in the world, that's good stuff right there. It comes back. Yeah. That's true though. Seriously, when you make good decisions, make the right decisions, forgive yourself for your past, work on yourself, and put out the right energy out there, like the good energy comes back, honestly, right? Like, do you notice that? Like, and then you surround yourself with the right people, everything.
Yeah, that's perfectly said. It's like that to me is, what do they say? Karma's a boomerang, but that's what life's about. It's about connection. It's just as easy. You could just as easily be, a jerk. I was trying to think of another word. I was going to curse, but I wasn't sure if I was allowed to. Or a really nice person. So it's just as easy to be one or the other. So why not be compassionate? When somebody like cuts me off on the road, I don't then go cut them off. What I say to myself is maybe they're going to the hospital to visit a sick loved one. And it's probably not true, but it makes me a lot nicer of a person. Just to judge people less, I feel less judged. And it's a really interesting, how different psychology can really affect the rest of your life. It's
your perspective totally changes. Absolutely. When you change 100%. I like this. One of my favorite quotes is, if you have the option to be right or be kind, choose kind every time.
Oh, that is a good one. I'm so plagiarizing that. That's great.
Yeah. I don't know who said it. I'm sure they don't know the original guys, but it is, because when you try to be right, it turns into an argument, it turns into debate, it turns into getting defensive, and then who knows what happens. But if you're just kind, if you choose the kind route, then it's just so much better. It's such better.
I love that. Yeah, that is perfect. Yeah.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, no, because it's true. Because I want to be right. I do. And when I'm right, when I know I'm right is a really good indication that I should really think about what's going on, because, usually when I dig my heels into something, there's something more deep rooted about me in it than about the situation. But it's a lot better to be kind than it is to always be right. And also the willingness to be wrong is very liberating. Like to not have to have it all figured out. Like, you're a father, you don't have to have parenting figured out. You don't have to be perfect. I'm not going to be a perfect husband. I'm not going to be a perfect employee. But to be able to admit that you're wrong, it's liberating.
Yeah, I just recently posted something about that, about being wrong, and just admitting it and just saying sorry or I apologize is so much more liberating than trying to keep your feet in the ground and fight for something that you're just, I don't even know, just not. Yeah. So
you do that. I did that forever. I look back at my life and I was like, oh my God, if I would have learned this younger. But you know what? Good decisions come from experience, and experience come from a ton of bad decisions. So
everything that happened to you in the past has brought you to where you are right now. Like you would not be Michael Rongo, this liberated, vulnerable, shame, realizing his shame person, all that stuff, and spreading a good story. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I'm now on this podcast, which hopefully, if one person can take something from this, that would be. Oh,
right.
Damn it! I'm trying not to swear on these podcasts.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing my best too because I didn't know the rules. This is my first podcast. I've never done this before. This is great.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm learning too. I mean, I'm just getting started too. So this whole swearing thing's a new thing. I'm not even sure what route I'm taking with that, to be honest.
No, but you know what's interesting, Justin, is that you have a very nice way about you. Like it's, I feel very comfortable talking to you. So that's very helpful. I don't feel judged. That's for sure.
Good. Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad that. Because 2 years ago, it might have been a little bit different of a conversation, and you might have felt judged. So I'm glad things are changing.
What's funny is like if the two of us met each other 4 years ago, we might have hated each other, right? Because we're similar, or we both two alpha guys, and sizing each other up, and then we meet under different circumstances with a different perspective on life, and I fast friends.
Exactly. It's so interesting you brought that up because you're probably completely right. Or we would have like partied our face off together and then hated each other. I don't know.
For our problems, right? Yeah.
But these circumstances are either way are a lot better. So that's good.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what kind of meditation do you do? Like I do mindful. I started doing it like, my meditation originally was with my eyes open because that's the way I was taught, concentrating on one part on the floor. And now I do it with my eyes closed because it's just like it's more. I find it easier. I'm always sitting in a chair. I don't usually do. I don't cross my feet or anything on the floor. I try to not take it too seriously because then I was only doing it if my situation was perfect. I just was curious about your practices. Like, what do? You seem pretty good at it.
Well, I mean, I've been doing it 9 months, but the thing about that I've been doing is exploring all different ways and trying to figure out what I like the best. I mean, I bought 5 meditation apps. I've done a lot. And I had a question here to ask you.
Sure.
Like what? No, you answered it. I was going to ask you, like, how do you do it? Like, what way do you do it? So that's you just answered it totally. But yeah, go ahead. You have more to say about it?
Like sometimes I do. I mix it up. Like I don't always like to do guided, but when I haven't done it in a while, and like knowing I was coming on this podcast, and I realized I've gotten a little away from it. I was like, I should really start meditating again, and so I got back into it, and I do it with Christina, and we're morning also. If I don't do it in the morning, I find it more difficult to do. That's all.
Yeah.
It might be better if I start with it. So we started doing it in the morning, Christina and I, and she likes to do guided. So I got back into guided, and it's actually really nice. So Headspace is just an app that I use, which is, obviously probably the most common one. But,
yep.
You could pick a female or male voice. You could change it up, and it's easy. And it's not too much talking.
Yeah, Headspace seems to be I used that in the beginning also. And just the personality I have, I can't stick with one thing always. I always have to switch it up. So that's why I've bought 5 and just switching it up, changing them. So
I need another one.
Well, Headspace goes live now, which is pretty cool. So you can join one of their live meditations at night or early in the morning. They have them like every half hour in the morning. It kind of gives it a little different twist. But see, I unplugged. So I had Susie from Unplugged Meditation. She's in LA. Have you heard of it before?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Unplugged Meditation is a podcast, isn't
it? No, it's there might be an Unplugged podcast. I have no idea, but it's
I'm pretty sure that there's a meditation either at the App Store or like one of those podcasts that is called Unplugged. I could be wrong.
No, I'm sure it's a common name, right? So, but she has a app. It's called Unplug, and there's all different teachers on there, and it's video, so it's kind of different. But it literally, for anything you're going through, it's so cool because anything you're going through, let's say that you have a meeting coming up, you click the one meeting coming up, and you click it, and you just play it, and it's like a 5-10 minute short meditation to do before you go into like a really big meeting.
But do you watch? So you watch a video?
No, it's just they just have it as a video. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can see in the beginning who it is and who the teacher is and who's saying it, and then you just close your eyes and you meditate. Yeah, and like if you're having like a really stressful day. So the reason the morning is so important, honestly, to say it is, and she's the one that was explaining this, is because you start again, you have to own your day. You have to start your day off right. If you start your day off correct and in a good positive way, instead of just rolling over and looking at your phone, your day is going to be completely different. Even if you have 10 things bad happen to you, it's still going to be a good day because you started it off right.
Absolutely.
And so what she does, and I'm starting to adopt this, is she literally, as soon as she wakes up or her alarm goes off, whatever it is, does a 10-minute guided meditation in her bed, laying down. Now, I've fallen asleep a couple times trying it, so I didn't do that. I sit up on my pillow, cross my legs, and do the 10 minutes then. And then what's that?
As soon as you wake up.
As soon as I wake up, or if I have to, if I have to pee really bad, I'll go pee first and then and then do it. But if you make it so it's a consistent thing where right when you wake up, do it, and then you get it in, right? And then your day. She was funny. She goes, I feel like how some people say I don't get out of bed for $10,000. Yeah. And she said that she feels like $10,000 before she gets out of bed because of the quick 10 minutes before. And that's,
Do you do different lengths of time, or do you have 10 is really my sweet spot. That's my best.
It just depends on the day that I'm feeling and the kind of time also that I want to do. So 10 to 20, honestly, 10 to 20. And then if I can fit in a 5 or a 10, what's that?
I said, if I can get to 20, that's when I'm in my best shape. It's when I've been doing it for a little bit and I can extend. Yeah. It's
there's no secret, right? So there's no secret to meditation. If you want to go deeper, just meditate longer.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you want to get deeper, meditate longer. And it's hard. I mean, the only way for me to really truly do that and do it right is to get up earlier. I have to get up before my kids get up and the house starts getting crazy. You know what I mean? For you have a nice option where you just get up and, there's no one, you don't have to worry about someone running around. So
is that what you're saying? Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So do you work from home?
Yeah. So you can see the office behind me.
I was going to say that makes it, it makes it kind of important for you to meditate too. If I'm working from home, there's a lot of distractions always.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably good to start your day with that. And and I'm a morning person. I always was, even in my youth. I always popped up really early in the morning. So for me, I go to the gym in the morning, I meditate in the morning, and I go to AA in the morning. So anything I do, it's in the morning.
That's
if I wait till after work to go to the gym, I'm probably not going.
Exactly. You know what? Sometimes you'll say, all right, I'm going to go at lunchtime or I'm going to go at this time, and you just don't end up doing it, right? It's so hard. What do you do? What kind of exercises do you do? Is it weights? Is it classes? What do you do?
No, I do weights. A lot of it is my own body weight, but I go to, I started working out. I was 215 pounds. I'm 5'8", so I was pretty short for my weight, vertically challenged, whatever you want to call it. But I was fat, and
okay.
Yeah, and I was I had never been that weight ever in my life. I was always around 180 pounds. So I started working out just slowly with weights, and then eventually a guy in my home group was like, hey, listen, you look like you're getting in good shape. At that point, I was losing about a pound a week. I was eating well. I was working out. And he's like, let's work out together. And he was a former personal trainer. So we worked out for 2 years together. And, I would do weight training. I would do pull-ups. I would do nothing too crazy, nothing too heavy, but just really stuff. Because what I realized is at 38 years old, it's a lot easier to stay in shape than it is to get in shape. So once I got in shape, now I just kind of maintain it.
Yeah.
Pull-ups. And he and I, because of our work schedules, had to stop working out together. So I actually got a personal trainer on my own now that I work out with once a week. And it just keeps me honest. Because, when you're working out with someone and it keeps me accountable, I don't slack off.
100%. That's good. That's a good tip. And what about healthy eating? You have any tips for healthy eating?
Yeah, so I thought I knew a lot about nutrition, and I don't. I didn't. I thought carbs were bad and this is good, and I didn't know. So being poor was a really great way for me to start eating healthy, because what I did was I cook every night, and I just stopped going to restaurants, and then I just continued that out. So my daily routine is I'll usually do some type of hard-boiled eggs in the morning, 2 with a yolk, 2 without. So 4, or I'll have a little breakfast sandwich which will be 2 English muffin, an egg, and turkey. I have a protein bar in between lunch and breakfast. For lunch, I have 2 pieces of grilled chicken and grilled veggies almost every day. Another protein bar usually when I get home from work. And then for dinner, you can eat with it. Really, like I'll make a nice dinner with Christina, and it's usually revolves around protein. I don't really, but on days I work out, I still have rice and stuff like that at night. And I my number one thing is I stay away from sugar, which makes the sour candy really a guilty pleasure. Because I don't eat sweets. I try very hard, and in the winter, I'm not as vigilant. Like when I know in the summer I'm going to have my shirt off and stuff, I'm still pretty vain and I still care about how I look. So I'm a lot more vigilant from like February through August than I am from August through February. So.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed not to hear any desserts in that daily food because I love my sweets. I'm not gonna lie.
Chris, and I'm a savory guy, which like if someone pops a bag of Doritos in front of me, it's like especially Cool Ranch, I might run through a wall to get away from it because I love them so much. And sour candy also, but like I don't eat ice cream. Like it's just not something that I really enjoy. Oh, you know what I do like? I do like peanut butter. So if you put peanut butter on stuff, like you can start like getting my attention.
Maybe you can. What do you know? Maybe you don't know anything, but I think I eat a lot of peanut butter. Is that bad?
No, you're in great shape. I mean, it's working, so I wouldn't worry.
I don't know. I feel like if you put what isn't good with peanut butter? I mean, you apples with peanut butter, toast with peanut butter, shake with peanut butter. What isn't?
Blueberries, frozen blueberries, which are a little sour. With peanut butter is one of my favorite.
Okay, I've had plenty of frozen blueberries, but never with peanut butter. I'll have to try that.
I think peanut butter is a lot like cheese. If you put it on something, it usually tastes better.
Yeah, the first person that ever said that to me was my friend Brian Bennett, and every now and then I'll text him like something I'm eating with peanut butter because it's always
yeah.
That's cool. Let's see. Now you said protein bars. Just curious, what protein bars do you eat?
So I use Quest always because it's got the only 1 gram of sugar in it. And it's got some carbs in it, but it's also got fiber, so they kind of offset. 200 calories, and it really at night it's hard because I give myself an hour of TV every night because I want to unwind, which I'm sure it'll change with kids. But Christina and I will sit down and watch a show. She had never seen The Sopranos, and I'm like, what? So we're in the middle of The Sopranos right now, watch. Yeah,
great show, of course.
You're
Italian, so you basically think you're part of The Sopranos, probably in the mafia.
Those guys give Italians a bad name, as my dad will say. They said Italians back 1,000 years. But it's just if you take the mafia angle of the killing people and all the sex, it could be any Italian family, But really true to life. It's a good show. But so for that hour, I want to sit and munch. I do. And it's really hard. So if I eat a protein bar, I'm usually, it kills that urge.
Okay.
Like I said, I will go to the movies to see a bad movie, really just to eat poorly. That's how crazy I am,
Hey, that's your guilty pleasure. I mean, whatever works for you, you figured it out.
Say again?
I said, whatever works for you, you figured it out.
Yeah, exactly. We all have to have some stuff that we have to enjoy life, and you have to be able to, if I only ate really, really healthy and I never had any of the stuff that I enjoyed, is that a life? I want to live.
I'd have to agree with you, but for people that just want to 100% do that, that's fine. It's up to them. But yeah, I agree. I love sweets, so I'm going to have sweets during the week. That's just me.
And so that's how I honestly, not to turn everything back to alcohol, but really alcohol and drugs were the real first love of my life. I consider that a love affair. And so giving that up and going through life without that, I was like, do I even want to do this? That's removing an arm. And it was interesting. So how you ever have a bad relationship and you break up and then 2 months later you're like, I can't believe I broke up with that girl. I'm going to get back together with her. And then you get back together with her, and in 2 weeks you go, I remember why we broke up. Because it's never any different. That's the way it was for drugs and alcohol. I would quit. I would get a month or two, and then I'd romanticize all the stuff I missed about it and go back to it. And it was just this toxic relationship where the sex wasn't even good anymore. That's the way it was with alcohol anyway. And
it's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And so that was So, I give myself enough of something that I like without trying to go overboard. So I work out 4 days a week. I won't work out 7 days a week because it's not healthy for me to do anything, meditation aside and AA aside. I'm talking about stuff that I can get obsessed with.
Right. I get it. No, I totally understand it. It makes total sense. And it's moderation, right? Everything's moderation, keeping yourself. And a lot of people, you got to figure out what makes you happy, right? What some people 7 days a week makes them happy. They have to get on their bike and ride 10 miles 7 days a week. Otherwise, they're not happy. So you just have to figure out what's that?
They might not be like me. That might actually be healthy for them. Like me, I might if I do it 7 days a week, I'll start doing it twice a day, 7 days a week, then 3 times a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, and then if you skip a couple days, you're gonna depress at yourself, and then you're like, yeah, and you,
you just know.
Yeah, I've been through it. I've been through that. I get it. So that's I'm on the same level as you, brother. I get it. So it's awesome. It's been a pleasure talking with you, Mike. Honestly, thank you.
It's a pleasure to be on. This was great. I really appreciate it. All right, good. So we made an hour. Oh, that's awesome. That flew. You want to hear a story about peanut butter real quick?
Sure.
So I love peanut butter. So I found trail mix and I convinced myself that trail mix was healthy, but they had peanut butter cups in them and M&M peanut butter, peanut M&Ms. So peanut butter M&Ms, not peanut M&Ms. And so I was eating them every night in front of for my hour of TV, and I put on 5 pounds, and I told myself it was because I was working my legs out harder. I just started. And so eventually I was like, you know what? My pants are getting tighter. This is not my legs, and I had to get rid of the trail mix. But that's who I am. That's me in a nutshell. I can convince myself of a lot, whatever I want. It's about self-awareness. I have to know. You got to laugh at that stuff because.
That's hilarious that you do that because I
Yeah. But I figured that I thought about that as we were.
Maybe I should try that with my with my pumpkin pie that I like to eat in the fall time. That it's actually healthy because pumpkin is a vegetable, right? Pumpkin a vegetable.
Yeah.
So that maybe if I can convince myself that I can eat more of it.
It's healthy. Yeah. Yeah. It's got seeds.
Yeah. I'll take the Michael Rongo approach of that.
Yeah.